Good morning, I'm Carolyn Brooke.
And I am Ben Thompson. After just one day, the RNC has gone from the Queen City there in Uptown to now the virtual stage. We're going to talk about some of the big moments at the Charlotte Convention Center, and as well as last night, some of the speeches that were made virtually, coming up in just a few minutes. But first, let's get a look at your forecast. Here's Larry Sprinkle.
Hey, good morning. We'll take a look at that hour-by-hour forecast across here today. More clouds and sunshine, a few scattered showers out there. Right around lunchtime, we'll be in the low 80s, mid-80s again this afternoon. We take it early tomorrow morning. We'll start to see clearing skies, low 70s overnight. Check the 7-day forecast. The big change between today and tomorrow, we go from the mid-80s into the low 90s with a high humidity. Heat index will feel more like about 100 tomorrow, about 102 on Thursday. Could be some showers as we get towards the end of the week and right into the upcoming weekend. And that's your forecast this morning, Carolyn.
Larry, thanks so much. Turning to your 5 big stories of the day in your morning rush. Today, the CMS Board of Education meeting for the first time since school started last week. So district leaders are going to talk, we're told, about some of the issues, the challenges that students and teachers are still facing. It's all because of technical issues. They're at the top of the list. Thousands of students having trouble still logging onto class. That meeting, by the way, set for 6 o'clock tonight.
Change of plans for Confederate Monument in Gaston County. Today, the Board of Commissioners there are going to have to figure out what to do after the Sons of Confederate Veterans said they don't want the statue. That means it's going to have to stay put for right now. This after the Board of Commissioners agreed to remove the Confederate Monument following days of protests.
Protests, by the way, continue in Wisconsin overnight. Multiple fires burning through the city. Police used tear gas on protesters. This comes after video surfaced of an officer shooting a black man in the back multiple times. Officials say that man, Jacob Blake, is in the hospital recovering now.
A fourth night of clashes between police and protesters in Uptown last night. Demonstrations against the RNC began to get violent after the convention wrapped up here in Charlotte. CMPD made 7 arrests after they say protesters blocked traffic and destroyed property. Officers used pepper spray several times last night, including once in front of police headquarters after a flag was cut down. That incident sent 2 people to the hospital. Today, the Republican National Convention enters day 2. Republicans kicked off a convention promising positivity and optimism, but the first night focused heavily on major warnings about the Democratic Party. NBC's Tracie has a recap.
Ben, good morning. There is a theme for every night of this convention. Tonight, it's Land of Opportunity featuring the First Lady. The spotlight is on Melania Trump tonight. Her 2016 convention speech was criticized for being too similar to Michelle Obama's. She speaks to a live audience from a newly renovated Rose Garden.
Here in Jerusalem.
Also tonight, the messenger of President Trump's foreign policy, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, a political speech during a taxpayer-funded trip. Despite promises of a positive message, Monday's speakers featured a lifelong Democrat.
But he's been all talk and no action.
And others.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want a cultural revolution.
Hammering Joe Biden.
Joe Biden is basically the Loch Ness monster of the swamp.
They called Democrats radical and praised President Trump's pandemic response, ignoring lives and jobs lost.
What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. They're using COVID to defraud the American people.
Republicans took on culture critics.
America is not a racist country.
Featuring the couple who pulled guns on Black Lives Matter protesters.
The Democrats no longer view the government's job as protecting honest citizens from criminals.
Democrats shot back.
Donald Trump reminds us every day who he is and how much worse it can get with a second term in office.
As hundreds rallied in person, 24 Republicans endorsed Joe Biden. Tonight, we'll hear from a couple of the Trump children, plus that Kentucky teenager who ended up in a confrontation on the National Mall with a Native American man. In Washington, I'm Tracie for Wake Up Charlotte.
This morning, Mecklenburg County's health director says she's worried about delegates not wearing masks or social distancing when they were inside the convention center. Chairs were 6 feet apart, as you can see here, but a few people had masks on. Delegates were tested for COVID-19 before coming to Charlotte. The health director, Gibby Harris, says that she has reached out to the RNC and that they're, quote, working hard to address the issues.
Time now to connect the dots when we make the news make sense. A man in Hong Kong becoming the first person to get the coronavirus for a second time. And while it sounds scary for sure, doctors say it's really not all that surprising.
Reinfection's really common with other coronaviruses. Doctors say there's no need to worry just yet. Let's connect the dots. All viruses mutate over time. They change. That means even if you fight off one version of the virus, your body might still have trouble fighting off a new one. That's exactly why researchers have been hesitant to say whether or not folks who've had COVID-19 are actually immune. Early research shows antibodies for the virus only last a few months, but that may not matter. Here's the encouraging news. Researchers say the man in Hong Kong showed no symptoms the second time he tested positive. While he didn't have antibodies to block the reinfection completely, he did have some sort of immunity that protected him from a serious infection. And that is connecting the dots.
Now, this is important to note here. Researchers say they still don't know just how contagious folks might be if they get that second case, if they get reinfected. That's obviously an important piece of the puzzle.
Now to some stories to keep you and your family safe and sound today. The CDC easing some of its travel guidelines.
That's right. Their website is no longer recommending 2 weeks of self-quarantine for travelers across the board. Instead, they have recommendations based on individual countries. Right now, pretty much every country allowing Americans to visit is still considered high risk. So it's a good idea to self-quarantine after a trip if you can.
If you're already worried about what you're going to cook for dinner tonight, maybe you're suffering from what's called cooking fatigue. A new survey says the majority of us are tired of making so many meals at home. Well, people were getting creative in March. Remember, people were baking bread and doing like homemade pasta and all those things. We have now, it's past that. We've fallen into a rut. Get this, the average person has cooked the same meal 28 times since the start of COVID-19.
All right, since we're in a digital newscast and we don't have to wrap anytime we don't want, we can just talk. Your best dish. I know you're not a big cook, Carolyn, but if you had to pick one thing, what would it be?
That I can make?
That you can make.
I can't really make anything.
Yeah, you do a green bean casserole, evidently.
Can I tell you the secret? I never made that.
What do you do then?
That was my ex-boyfriend who made those.
But haven't you made it recently? I thought you've talked about you've taken it places.
Oh, I have made it. It's not as good. The one I brought here for Thanksgiving. I'm not a good cook.
Sometimes I think I'm speaking English and you're speaking another language.
That could very well be true.
Larry, did you hear me say, hey, what dish? I mean, I think that's pretty clear.
I'm trying to tell you, I don't have an answer. I'm not a good cook. I can make things, they don't taste good. No one wants to eat what I make.
Larry, please make this simpler.
Including me.
Your best thing you can cook, Larry.
I'm not a great cook, but I love pasta, and I take the marinara sauce and mix it with, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Tofu, but or veggie. You know, you can get veggie soy protein mix in there to make it.
Like, that sounds good.
You know,
Ben?
vegetarian pasta.
See, folks, that is insight you'll only get
on this digital.
In a digital newscast. How about that?
That I speak.
Exclusive content.
I speak Carolyn.
I really enjoy making any sort of like soup in the fall. Like,
we all know Ben brings it to the boss.
I really do.
Ben brings soup to the boss. He does. He's like, oh, teacher's pet, here's my pasta fajoule.
My pasta fajoule is.
Ooh. All right.
Bomb.
When he wants a raise, he brings out the big guns. That's true.
Now I'm hungry. Now I'm starving.
All right, there you go.
All right, so are we talking weather?
No, we're just saying goodbye.
Oh.
We already talked weather.
I can talk about it.
You're in another planet, I think.
I'm sorry, I'm a space cadet. I promise I'll be better tomorrow morning at 4:30 on Wake Up Charlotte.
Is it your first day here?
I mean, it feels like it sometimes. It's all brand new, Ben.
Bye, folks.